everyone. Before I founded Treblle, I used to run a development company, and one of the earliest clients I had was Jason. And today we're going to talk to him. So Jason is a founder and CEO of Quadrant 2, a New York-based development company with a focus on mobile apps. And together we worked on many different projects in the span of the past 9 years. And we've built many great products that actually help people. And this interview will simply give you a glimpse into what we've done together and what Jason is up to now and how his company uses Treblle today. So hi, Jason. It's always nice to touch base with you. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Just a bit of, it's always hectic in our business. So you know that. So I just, to give users a glimpse of what you and I have worked on, I'm going to show a really cool screenshot that I think will prove and kind of point out some of the things that you were thinking about all the way back in 2012. So I'm just quickly going to share that, and you're going to see a screenshot of, I think, the first project we ever did. And the email that got introduced to me was a small PHP project, and it shows one of the first projects that we actually built. And even then, in my mind, you've always been at the helm of new and emerging technologies. And in 2012, I didn't even know about SimpleDB and working with push notifications and stuff like that. So how do you do it? What's the secret? How do you stay on top of the latest trends in tech?
All right. So I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with technology, as you know.
Yeah.
And part of the thing is that like I could sort of see what pieces of the puzzle ought to be available, and I've often gotten set. In the 90s, I spent a lot of time trying to build the things that I felt were missing, only to find that much larger, smarter teams also on the same track. So, like in the 90s, I spent probably 3 years building what other larger teams were going to call XML.
Okay.
What I learned through that experience was that through the school of hard knocks, I started to realize that different companies and different peoples and different teams were going to actually eventually come out with the stuff that I needed.
Yeah.
So rather than focus on the things that were a bit out of reach, I started to kind of anticipate what ought to be there and kind of wait it out a little bit instead of going through the effort of building it myself. Unless I could do it. Like if I felt like I could do it, then I would say, okay, this seems manageable. Let's try to do this. So when Amazon came out with the cloud services, I immediately understood what that was about. And I was like, okay, I got to check this out. This is like when I thought I was inventing XML and then Microsoft came out with it.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I didn't know, like when we started working, Amazon wasn't as, I think it was just starting to become popular. And I was surprised that you already know, like when you said SimpleDB, I'm like, I've heard of NoSQL databases, but never SimpleDB. So it was it was a really good learning experience for me, especially because Treblle uses Amazon so deeply today. So thank you for that. I think maybe you even introduced me to the AWS services. I'll have to remember on that one.
What's funny about the document that you show here is funny because at the time we made the video bystander technology quote unquote serverless, and I remember getting on the phone with Amazon support around that time and saying to them, I'm trying to make the push notifications run from the devices because it seems to me to make sense that this should be happening, that this doesn't need to happen on a dedicated server. I said, I'm trying to make it serverless. And I remember the person at Amazon going, serverless? That's an interesting idea. I have to wonder. Where that guy is now.
He might be the new CEO. Yeah, depends on who you talk to. So I know some of the things that you guys and you personally and you at Quadrant 2 have built, but just so that everybody who doesn't, can you give a quick rundown of your background and what exactly Quadrant 2 does?
I mean, my background is art and tech, and that's what I've always done. And I mean, always. So Quadrant 2 has been around for almost 26 years. Mm-hmm. I like to think of us as the oldest startup in all of history. And we've done everything from actuarial pricing models to video games and robotics. In 2008, I immersed myself in mobile. And in 2011, we created a viral app for Occupy Wall Street called the I'm Getting Arrested app. And then from there, it was as if the company and I had found our calling, in that we realized that we could make a big impact by creating apps that gave David a fighting chance against Goliath.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've always admired about you and the work that you do at Quadrant 2 is this idea that I first heard you use it, and is this notion of tech for good. Can you explain a bit of the meaning behind it, how you got to that? Did you choose to go down this path, or did projects like this found you?
So what happened with I'm Getting Arrested was sort of a weird serendipitous epiphany, right? Like, I was working on a different project with a collaborator whose girlfriend was being kettled on the Brooklyn Bridge demonstrating for Occupy. Yeah. And so at the time, I essentially had code laying around that was basically, the goal was she was trying to message from while getting kettled using like a chat application. Yeah. So my collaborator and I, Sam, said, let's try to create something that would be, better suited for that situation. And the goals were, well, what can we actually accomplish and create within 3 days? Because the next big protest was Saturday. And this was Wednesday. And that's how we did it. And so essentially in 3 nights, leveraging tech we'd already built to a certain extent, we created the app. Anyway, long story short, once we created that tech, like I say, it went viral, it took on a life of its own, and people got in touch with us. We've always been innovators. So it was awesome to apply, an innovative mindset to organizations that had really important issues that were fighting for very important issues that might otherwise get lost in the sauce. So people came to us. Eventually, we started coming up with ideas and pitching them to organizations. They would find funding, and then we'd do it. So it kind of turned around into almost like us being independent filmmakers looking for distribution channels. Yeah. Cool. And you've always built apps. I know you personally knew how to build Android apps. You've developed them. Now you've built iOS and Android apps used by millions of people in the US. Now, is it getting easier or more difficult to build great apps today, or? Well, for us, again, one of the technologies that we've been obsessed with for the last 2 years is figuring out how to make everything work from the same code base, meaning the portal and the API and the iOS and the Android apps. Yeah. And so we think we've got the recipe because we've got a system now where we're able to do that using native script and Angular and essentially Amazon Cloud Services. So we think we've discovered the secret sauce. I'm sure some company will come out and do it much better, and we'll use their tech next. But right now, I think we've got something that works really well for us.
I have to note that one of probably the most intriguing periods of our work relationship was when we were introducing the notion of what we called Form Builder, which is essentially a way to build entire app UIs from JSON. So we would control everything from the API in JSON. We would send this really huge and complicated JSON that would literally build widgets and blocks on the app. So you could literally have one app today, and tomorrow it could look completely different with complete information. So that was like, at that time, Apple was very slow to release apps and release updates. So it was a really nice and interesting approach to it. And I think how many times did we try to get the perfect schema for that, Jason? I think we've been chasing it for the past 7 years.
Well, but we've got something now that works really well in that regard. Nice. And what's funny is that I continually go back to the same exact document that we put together like six or so years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think? What are some of the challenges you face when you build these apps? Like, how many people do you usually have on board to build an app from start to finish?
I mean, if I had in a perfect world, it would be just one person.
Yeah.
All right. I've had to accept that that's just not feasible. I would say that my ideal team is three. Is three engineers. I think you need someone who's really good at back end, someone who's really good at web, and someone who's really good at mobile. And,
nice.
And I think that's sort of the dream team right now, because each one of those is very different skill sets. And
I agree.
I look at our team as like a band, different people. Like we've got a drummer and a guitarist and someone who can maybe do keyboards, vocalist.
I agree. I was, what would you say I was out of those three? A drummer, a guitar player, or somebody who did the piano?
You were definitely like the lead guitar.
Nice. Okay, I do like AC/DC, so yeah, that's kind of rock and roll. So in the heart of all the apps that we kind of built were APIs, and the only reason, like I said, I know that is because I've helped you build those apps and those APIs. And like I said, we did build a lot of advanced and, in my opinion, complicated APIs for that time. So what would you say, what are some of the challenges when you're dealing with APIs and building with them?
Well, I mean, especially when you're dealing with teams, one of the biggest, everybody runs into this, which is the nobody being sure exactly where the point of failure is.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, so that's the trick with APIs, right? Is that anywhere in this very complex system, something can go awry, and it could be that somebody typed a semicolon when they meant to type a dash, or you know. So, so I would say that's the trick. The other thing about APIs is that it kind of exists in that point.
Yeah.
Anybody can point the finger.
Yeah. And for me personally, while we were working on your project, it was always like about not seeing what was happening, because there were a lot of requests coming in. A lot of your apps were popular, so having that insight, I think, was key, at least from my end while working on it. Yeah. And to help us all, while we were working on some of these APIs, we started to use one of the earliest versions of Treblle, probably like version 0.001. And I just want to thank you for that. I know it took a lot of trust from your side in me, in the product, and in everything we were trying to do, because, it could have impacted your API. We could have done a bad job. I'm glad we didn't.
I wish you would have told me this when you were working on
it. So now I did. So now you've been using Treblle for a couple of years. Like I said, probably one of the first users. And could you describe?
I often thought you should have called it Jacob.
Jacob was actually one of Jason's earliest employees. And hi, Jacob, if you're listening, he's like this awesome guy. He was a project manager. What was he by trade? He didn't finish tech, right?
No, he was a library sciences. He has a library sciences background, and
and he had the ungrateful job of essentially making sure that we're all on track and trying to, do some light QA, understand where the problems are. And we would be handling the most complicated JSONs that even sometimes when I look at them, I'm not sure what's going on. So yes, one of the earliest reasons why we started using it would be Jacob. And I think he would say that it did help him. So you've been using Treblle for years. Could you describe how you guys use it and how it helps you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing about Treblle is that it's, in some ways, it's kind of like, it's a point of truth for us. and it immediately it immediately becomes the arbiter of what's going on.
Yeah.
So if something's up, the first thing we do now is look at Treblle.
Cool.
Okay. Because and that's the first point of, like, if something goes wrong with the data, anything's down, there's a problem, things aren't as we expect them. First thing we do is look at Treblle, and Treblle gives us the answer immediately. Then from there, we know, once we look at Treblle, then we know where to look. Then we know where to point the finger. So in some ways, instead of the API being the point at which everybody's pointing the finger at,
yeah,
the Treblle becomes the point where the finger gets pointed from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know, is it a mobile side thing? Is it a API side thing? Is it a database thing? Is it a website thing? Like, where do we go from there? But Treblle becomes like the first point of truth.
Yeah, I know. Just like a few months ago, I was, you'll remember this story. I was driving. I was actually the best man at a wedding, and it's probably the same in the United States. But usually, if I'm the best man, I have to organize the groom like a party a week before the wedding. So we were on our way to that party, and I know you slacked me and said, something isn't working with some of those videos, and my immediate thought was go look at Treblle and see what's up. And I think you managed to figure out what happened. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So essentially, I think it was about some videos were not getting into the system, or something was broken in that pipeline, but you were still able to recover it because essentially you had a record of all those APIs being made with all the data onto your server. Yep. Cool.
And we were able to essentially resync because of the data that had that Treblle had captured.
Cool. Yeah. And just before we end, like, if you had to highlight one feature, small or big, on Treblle, what do you think you personally like the most?
Well, I think we just did. The feature that I do like the most is the ability that we can immediately see where we can immediately resolve where an issue might be. Mm-hmm. Again, this is no small thing if you've ever worked with APIs. Yeah. We can tinker with it using Treblle, like right there, right? We can actually change the parameters so that we can understand, almost like you're debugging, software. I mean, but like, as you're familiar with using, when you develop an app or something else, you can actually debug and figure out what the problem is so that you then have a clear path for resolving it. And that's pretty insanely cool. In fact, like I said, like in the case we just discussed, you can use it in a case like that to actually repair what was wrong very quickly. So those are all things that are like, incredibly efficient in terms of, and make life a lot more pleasurable for everyone.
Music to my ears. Now, what's next for Quadrant 2? I know you guys are working on multiple platforms. One is called Prompt. So do you want to give us like a bit of intro into what are some of the plans? What is it that you're building? And just give an intro into Prompt.
Well, so Quadrant 2 is migrating from being a primarily service-oriented company to a product company. That's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We still take on awesome projects, and so we're always listening for interesting clients who have interesting problems for us to solve. But the thing that excites me the most right now is our messaging platform, Prompt. Prompt allows people to send out mass messages very inexpensively and without stealing people's data, for lack of a term. It's completely anonymous. It has no registration, and yet it allows an incredibly rich experience for its users, and a free experience for the users. So that's the thing that excites me the most. We just released it for a number of countries, and we'll be rolling it out for more, including Croatia. And
I look forward to Treblle being one of the users of Prompt, because I think, and I've told you this, for me, it's an ideal way of just getting like a small set of messages out to people who are interested, right? So instead of writing like, I don't know, a Twitter or a LinkedIn post or a changelog, I could just push to prompt, and whoever is interested will essentially get that message.
Yep.
And one important thing, you are using Treblle on prompt, and I think you built it with Strapi, if I'm correct. The latest version is powered by Strapi.
Yep. We, like I say, that's become part of our stack.
I think I have to say thank you to Henry, who's one of your engineers who helped us with the Strapi integration. So thank you to Henry. Cool. That's going to be it for this time. Thank you so much for your time. More importantly, I really appreciate all the support you've given us, our ex-company, for the past 9 years, and everything that you taught me personally about tech, business, and everything else. And more importantly, thank you for being a first Treblle customer, and thank you for continuously using Treblle.
Oh yeah, of course, Vedran. We're kindred spirits. I'm glad. I'm so happy that we've been working together,
and we will in the future. Thank you very much, man.
All right.